Good day, everyone. I am Mary Siren A. Hilaria, and I am here to report to you about Chapter 2, Workforce Planning and Recruitment. So this chapter consists of two major HR activities involved in talent acquisition. The first activity deals with workforce planning, and the second one deals with recruitment. Workforce planning is essential in informing HR practitioners of the number of positions the organization needs in the short or even long term, and the skills and competencies required for these positions. So, what is workforce planning? It is the process of analyzing, forecasting, and planning workforce supply and demand, assessing gaps, and determining target talent management interventions to ensure that an organization has the right people with the right skills in the right places at the right time to fulfill its mandate and strategic objectives. The successful quest to find and retain the best people often and ideally begins even long before candidates get to know about the vacancy in an organization or set foot in the company's premises or the HR office. The foundations of a good hiring decision are laid in a process known as manpower planning or workforce planning. Next is determining the manpower need in workforce planning. Deciding on which person will make the best fit in an organization starts with knowing the right kind of people needed by the organization to enable it to succeed. It has been said that if you don't know what you're looking for, how will you know where to look, and how will you know that you've already found what you're looking for? Although workforce planning can be a tedious process, it provides a roadmap or blueprint for the HR department to execute almost all of its functions. Ultimately, it provides the organization with a guide to make staffing decisions, such as promotions and all other movements that relates to getting people into, around, and or out of an organization. This adage holds true for effective talent acquisition, which must be based on a careful assessment of the manpower needs and must be aligned with the defined manpower plan of an organization. As you can see in the diagram, in workforce planning, you should choose the right people with the right skills in the right place at the right time with the right cost. And this diagram is what we call the workforce planning cycle. Next, we will discuss about the scope of workforce planning. Workforce planning can be performed at various levels of an organization. Planning can be done for an entire organization, a division or section within the organization, a set of units or work groups, or even for a single unit within the company. Workforce planning is ordinarily conducted whenever there is a change in the kind and number of people needed in the organization or in the unit. So kapag yung company or organization nag-change sila ng staffing profile, headcount, or staffing levels ng kanilang mga employees, dito na papasok yung workforce planning natin. So meron tayong formal or informal planning. So kapag merong internal changes sa organization or company, kailangan din na may changes in the staffing profile through right sizing and retraining or retooling. So examples nito na magkakaroon ng impact sa kind and number of people na kailangan is shown in my presentation. So, yung una is company expansion. Siyempre, for example, yung isang company, nagkaroon sila ng other branch or nag-open sila ng other branch. It also means na kailangan nila pa ng mas maraming empleyado. Doon na papasok yung role ng HR na kailangan magdagdag ng mga employees. So, next is financial difficulties, company downsizing, or closure. Siyempre, ngayong pandemic, maraming businesses na nag-close, maraming nahihirapang makabangon. So, kailangan nilang magbawas ng empleyado. Then, company relocation. So, halimbawa, yung company na sa remote area, magta-transfer sila into another area kung saan mas maraming target customers. Yung cons nun, yung mga empleyado, there's a possibility or chance na hindi na lang din mag-transfer doon sa new location kasi either expensive or mahirap. Kaya yung company na yon, kailangan ulit nilang mag mag-hire ng panibagong employees, which is ititrain pa nila. Next naman is company measures. So, there are two companies, usually sister companies, yan eh. Kapag medyo nalulugi yung isang company, nag-decide sila na i-combine na lang two companies into one company. So, yung mga employees niyan, there's a possibility na yung iba, i-absorb nila, tsaka yung iba, tatanggalin nila. Changes in technology or production or work systems or streamlining of systems. So dito, kapag nagkaroon ng change sa technology from traditional to modern, kailangan ng mga companies or organization na i-train ulit yung kanilang mga employees. Or, kapag there's presence of technology, maaaring magtanggal ng employees dahil minsan, mas kayang gawin ng isang technology yung ginagawa ng 3 or more employees. Then, yung new product lines or services offered. Kapag yung company nagpalabas sila ng new product or services, either kailangan nilang i-train yung mga old nilang employees or mag-hire sila ng panibago to offer that product or certain service that they have. Lastly, increase targets for production, sales, and services. So kapag yung isang company gusto nilang tumaas yung production nila at ang kanilang mga servisyo, it's either na magdadagdag sila ng equipments or magdadagdag sila ng employees. From A to G, ito yung mga internal changes na nagkakaroon ng impact sa kind and numbers na kailangan ng isang company or organization. So the need for changes in an organization's staffing levels and profile can be externally driven as well. So this happens during the times when the economy or political environments is beset with problems. It also happens when there are changes in the market where the organization operates or competes in, or when factors in the labor market change, for example, introduction of new labor laws or standards. So in summary, any internal or external change that affects people in an organization, how work is done, how people work together, interact, relate with one another, indicates the need for some form of workforce planning, since it helps the organization identify how it can and should effectively adopt that change. So yung workforce planning is a necessary part of the many changes in the management processes and efforts to help the organization to be more effective, competitive, profitable, and successful. Next that I will discuss is the steps in workforce planning. So depending on the nature of the organization, its size, its type, its industry or history, workforce planning can be very basic or complicated. It can be simple activity performed by one person in one day, or a complex process that involves the HR department working with various units or functional groups in the organization over a long period of time. Regardless of the complexity of the process taken, there are usually 4 distinct phases or stages in workforce planning. Step 1 is situational analysis or environmental scanning. Step 2 is forecasting demand. Step 3 is analysis of the supply of human resources. And step 4 is the development of plans for action. For the HR practitioner, the first step, which is the situational analysis or environmental scanning, involves a review of the environment in which his or her organization operates and of identifying or focusing on current and anticipated factors in the internal environment that may affect the organization. Often, the environmental scan involves examining relevant aspects of the external environment, such as the economy of the country it operates in, the political climate, and the regulatory and demographic factors. So apart from scanning the external environment, some organizations also consider the internal environment, which involves looking at internal resources and anticipating how this may need to change in the future to meet organizational goals. So in environmental scanning, SWOT analysis will take place. So, a structured yet simple way of doing an environmental scan is through a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. The SWOT framework categorizes and labels internal aspects of the organization as strengths and weaknesses, and external situational factors as either opportunities or threats. Through the analysis of these four areas, an organization is able to identify both positive and negative factors that influence its success from within and outside the organization. The advantage of doing a SWOT analysis is that it helps the organization develop a full awareness of major factors that may affect the organization's ability to attain its goals. As you can see in my presentation, the strengths and weaknesses are the internal factors and the opportunities and threats are the external factors. Let's proceed to the analysis of internal factors. The analysis of internal factors that are relevant to the manpower plan often includes a review of the following areas. First is the human resources. These are the current profile of employees, either their demographics and competencies, and a turnover of retention rates. Next is the current processes. This includes the employees' policies and programs, workflow and design of jobs, automated systems, communication systems, and decision-making in the organization. Next is the financial resources. These are the current financial health of the organization, sources of income and investment opportunities. And lastly, physical resources. This is the company's location, facilities, and infrastructure. Then the analysis of external factors. External factors considered may include the following items that generally have an impact on manpower in an organization. One is the economic trends, such as local, national, and international financial trends. Two is the labor market conditions or trends. These are the levels of unemployment and level of overseas employment. And lastly, regulatory conditions. These are the minimum wage laws, equal opportunity to employment, and laws on job security. Next step is the forecasting demand. General approaches to forecasting manpower demands includes quantitative forecasting approaches and qualitative forecasting approaches. The quantitative approaches to manpower demand forecasting involve the use of statistical or mathematical methods in analyzing the data. So among companies today, the most common quantitative methods that they use are first, historical ratio analysis, then trend analysis, or statistical analysis. In ratio analysis, one of the main objectives of manpower planning is to establish staffing levels. Therefore, in using the ratio analysis, the first factor is usually a causal factor. This is the one that directly affects or measures the success of an organizational activity, such as sales volume or production or output. And the second factor is usually the number of employees needed to generate those sales or output. In order to make the projection using the ratio analysis, the manpower planner projects the increase or decrease in manpower needed for the future based on the ratio or the nature of the relationship between sales volume or production and the number of employees in the past. Next is trend analysis. So quite similar to the ratio analysis, the trend analysis examines the change in an organization's staffing levels over a period of time and determines a pattern or trend in these changes when they are compared with changes in the level of a key performance or financial metric of the organization. So for example, the organization may look into the total number of customer service employees it has at the end of each of the last 5 years and the number of customer transactions received in each year. Or a car dealer may compare car sales volume per sales representative for each year. So, they link the number of employees with the key factor that is important for the organization. Example is the sales volume or the customer transactions. So that the trend or pattern in the changes in these two factors allow the HR practitioner to make future staffing predictions. And lastly, for quantitative approaches is the statistical analysis. So this consists of studying sets of equations describing the complex interrelationships of various factors related to the business of the organization, such as production time, sales volume, turnover rates, retirement rates, growth rate, and net profit on the manpower levels. So often, this is a mathematical model created to describe the interplay of these factors, and it becomes a tool and basis for making estimate of staffing levels for the future. So, since this method requires the input of a larger amount of data in the simultaneous analysis of a group of factors, most HR practitioners doing statistical analysis for the forecasting are aided by the computer software that are capable of doing such analysis. Next approach is the qualitative forecasting approaches. In contrast to quantitative approaches, qualitative approaches to forecasting are less statistical and rely on experts' assessment to anticipate future staffing needs. Unlike the quantitative, they are more on data or charts or diagrams. Although they are relatively easier to use and are often less rigid than their quantitative counterparts, qualitative methods nevertheless demand from the HR planner an objective and systematic review of past data, experts' experience, sound judgment, and conclusions derived from existing information or knowledge about organizational plans. So the common methods that are used for qualitative approaches is the expert forecast and the Delphi technique. Expert forecast. So in this method, usually the managers are the experts. So the managers estimates future human resource requirements based on their past experiences, judgment, and knowledge about the organization's future and its anticipated manpower needs. So since managers are more knowledgeable about the organization plans, they are in good position to make predictions about staffing levels that are needed to attain these goals. So this qualitative approach to forecasting can also entail the expert's analysis of historical quantitative and qualitative data, but not necessarily with the level of rigor and detail of modeling or statistical analysis. Such quantitative data are enriched with the perspective of the expert's experience and knowledge. So at times, the experts or the managers can also use informations from surveys and benchmarking studies to estimate workforce staffing numbers. Delphi technique. Resting on the same assumption that managers are experts within the organization who are in the best position to project the needed profile of people needed for the organization. The Delphi technique aims to improve the objectivity of expert forecasts. So this method involves a group of pre-selected individuals and getting their inputs on future manpower levels and consolidating their projections. The Delphi technique sometimes uses a bottom-up approach to gather and consolidate staffing projections from experts within the organization. So for example, kanina yung expert natin is the manager. So there's always a low-level manager which sometimes we call assistant managers. So this assistant managers helps the experts in transmitting these projections to improve staffing projections. Next step is the analysis of the supply of human resources. So the next step in manpower planning is forecasting supply of human resources. The purpose of supply forecasting is to determine the size and quality of present and potential people available from within and outside the organization to meet the future demand for manpower. Supply forecast is the estimate of the number and kind of potential people that could be available to the organization. Two important techniques for forecasting human resources supply is the succession analysis and the Markov analysis. So sa succession analysis, it consists of two parts. Yung una, they are making detailed inventory of how many people are currently in various job categories or those with specific skills within the organization. And then yung pangalawa, they are making analysis of the expected movements of the projected outflow of people. So yung current staffing level minus those promoted, demoted, transferred, resigned, retired, mga na-lay off, mga namatay. plus the new hires or the new transfers or yung mga na-promote. These are the projected inflow of people. It will be equal to the unit's internal supply for the next year. The second technique used in forecasting internal supply is called the Markov analysis. So this forecast is made by developing a transition matrix or Markov matrix that shows the internal flow of human resources. So dito, malalaman yung projections of movements of people over a period of time based on the historical average rate of movement from one position to another of a company. So the projection dito is usually expressed in terms of statistical probability for a given period. So dito, yung HR will predict how many people will remain in the organization in the future. Or di kaya they will forecast how many people will there be at certain levels in the organization. So for example, sabihin nila na, 25% of probability na may magre-resign or aalis ng company within 12 months. And then meron namang 10% probability na mag-promote yung mga supervisor. So by that, this will help them identify positions na could be potentially vacant and have to be filled at some future time. So in this final step, this involves consolidating all of the data and inputs and determining the most effective strategy to close the gap and achieve the desired manpower profile. So yung HR dapat identify nila kung ano dapat yung strategies nila to reach their projections. So among all the strategies that an organization can consider, I've listed some here, 5 of them that a company can consider to attain the desired manpower profiles. So first, acquiring talent and hiring manpower externally. So either mag-hire sila ng mga panibagong employees and then building internal talents. Yung mga dati nilang empleyado, they can train them or either promote them. Next is renting talents. So dito, they can hire people for short-term contractual engagement or for consultancies, or sometimes pwede silang mag-outsource ng other services from other companies. And then, pwede din magkaroon ng work arrangement or make changes in schedules. Diba ngayon sa mga work at home, meron silang nagpo-providing some companies ng flexible working hours. Either sometimes mag-increase or mag-decrease sila ng overtime work, mga ganon. And then lastly, companies can plan reductions sa workforce nila like retirements and exit programs. So, for an organization to have a constant balance between its manpower supply and demand, because of volatile economies, ever-changing needs of organization, increasing mobility of employees, and simply because there are factors na nag-affect talaga sa business or operations ng isang company or organization. Pero in most cases, there is generally a gap between current manpower and predicted demand. Next topic that I will be discussing to you is about recruitment. So what is recruitment? Recruitment refers to the organizational activities that influence the number and types of applicants who apply for a job and whether the applicants accept jobs that are offered. So this includes actions intended to bring a job opening to the attention of potential candidates outside the organization. It's also to influence whether these candidates may apply or just have an interest, or in the end, they can accept a job offer. I will be discussing to you the methods of recruitment. So first is job advertising. So advertising or announcing a job vacancy is the most common way of attracting people to apply for jobs. So there are so many ways to do job advertising. Usually, it
job advertising is posted in newspapers, journals, magazines, bulletin boards, and the internet. Pero di ba before the internet, yung job advertising is mainly sa newspaper lang. Doon daw yung nakalagay sa classified ads. I don't know if some of you have tried it before or kung abutan niyo man yun. Pero particular space in the newspaper yata, doon nakalist lahat ng mga companies and mga job vacancies nila. And doon nakalagay kung ano yung mga positions na vacant. Yung advantage daw, yung pag-post sa newspaper is the ability to reach wide audience. Kung sa bagay, kasi before, mostly yung mga taong wala pang internet, wala pang social media, they read talaga newspapers. Kaya job advertising is mainly sa mga dyaryo noong unang panahon. Next is internet posting. So among these avenues for posting job ads, the most common platform for job ads is the internet because it is a relatively inexpensive, quick, and reliable way of making the company and vacancy known locally and internationally. So kapag mostly people use internet, mas wide yung audience if companies post job vacancy through internet. One of which is company websites, jobstreet.com, LinkedIn. Sobrang dami ng companies na nag-post doon about their job vacancies. Next is social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Companies also post on different social medias to encourage people to apply in their company. Next is headhunting or executive search firms. So for example, PESO. It is a government organization that collects all job applicants. Tapos yung mga companies lumalapit lang sa kanila to search for applicants for a specific position. Tapos yung PESO, yung magbibigay sila ng mga applicants na suited for that job. And then next example is recruitment agencies. Usually, di ba, yung mga work abroad, yung mga recruitment agencies, yung naghahanap ng possible applicants na gustong mag-apply ng mga trabaho abroad. There are called executive search firms or colloquially as headhunters. Number 4 is employee referral. So alam niyo naman to, na for example, ako, may akong friend, may cousin, tito, tita, or kakilala na they are suitable for that job or for that position, edi sasabihin ko lang sa HR namin o di kaya sa manager namin na that person have the skills and the abilities for that certain position. Number 5 is internal recruitment. So for example, na-vacant yung position na supervisor and there's a certain staff na qualified for that position. So instead of hiring a new applicant or hiring a new employee, yung staff na lang na qualified, you need to promote for that position. And that's what you call internal recruitment. Number 6 is rehiring former employees. So this is based on my experience. Nung in-accept ko yung offer kay BDO, nagkaroon kami ng training, syempre. And then may kasama ako sa training na he was a former employee. So na-rehire siya. Yung reason niya is nag-resign siya because gusto niyang mag-abroad. Unfortunately, hindi siya nag-successful, so bumalik siya kay BDO. So that is rehiring former employees. Dating employee na nag-resign, tapos ni-recruit ulit. Number 7 is walk-ins or walk-in applicants. This is one of the most common methods of recruitment. Kasi applicants just go to companies and then submit their application, tapos maghintay na lang sila if the company will call them. Also, there are walk-in applicants na isisend na lang nila sa email and resumes and applications nila, isisend nila online. So they are called walk-in applicants. Number 8 is college recruiting. So dito pumapasok yung mga job fairs conducted sa mga schools, universities, or colleges. So yung mga companies pupunta sa different schools para mag-offer ng vacancies, job vacancies And then some of them also post vacancies sa mga bulletin boards ng schools. Next method is internships. So, kailangan yung mga students mag-render ng OJT nila in internships sa isang company. So, they will choose the company that they want to go to for their OJT. And then, kapag yung company na yun, ay may last method is the creative recruitment methods. So aside from the 9 methods that I mentioned earlier, some companies have their own unique way of recruiting people. So, yung ibang companies, minsan nag-organize sila ng student leadership training programs, and then, if may makita silang potential na student, pwede nilang i-absorb or bigyan nila ng job offers. Next na example din is signing bonus. Yung ibang company, nagbibigay sila ng lump sum of money if ikaw na applicant magjo-join sa company nila or sa team nila or i-accept mo yung offer nila. Another example is signing bonus. So yung ibang company, nagbibigay sila ng lump sum of money if mag-join ka sa team nila or in-accept mo yung job offer na binigay nila sa'yo. So, yun lang yung mga some of the examples for the creative recruitment methods. Ikaw ba? Sa anong recruitment method ka nakapasok sa trabaho mo noon or sa trabaho mo ngayon? Next na i-discuss ko sa inyo is effective recruitment challenges. So, despite tried and tested recruitment methods, there are several challenges to conducting recruitment effectively, and I have listed 2. One is lack of information or the poor brand image of the company as an employer. So, usually yung mga applicants, syempre, mas pipiliin nila yung mga companies na sikat, yung may good brand image, yung alam nila na magaling mag-handle ng tao, maraming benefits na binibigay. That's one of the challenges, yung lack of information or the poor brand image of the company. The last challenge is the time available to fill a vacancy. For example, sa isang company may nag-resign. So, mabivacant yung position ng nag-resign na yon. Yung nag-resign, they have to render 15 to 30 days lang before they exit the company. So, yung HR, kailangan makahanap sila ng kapalit ng nag-resign within that span of time. So, that is one of the challenge that the HR faces, the time available to fill a vacancy. Here are the 2 questions for my report for our midterm exam. 1. Explain the role that workforce planning plays in talent acquisition and how it is undertaken. 2. Determine how HR can ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of talent acquisition activities. You may send your answers to my messenger, Sayang, or my Gmail account, sayang400@gmail.com. Deadline will be on March 17, 2021. That ends my report. Thank you!